Become impossible to ignore. The Power of Dangerous Confidence, published by the Growth Mind audiobook. Introduction. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize they have been living too cautiously, not because they lack ability, but because they have spent too much of their energy measuring themselves against other people's expectations. They hesitate before speaking. They second-guess their decisions. They postpone their ambitions until they feel ready. Slowly, without noticing, they become spectators in a life they were meant to lead. What if confidence was never the missing piece? What if the real problem was believing that confidence had to come first? Most people treat confidence like a reward waiting at the finish line. They believe they must achieve more, know more, earn more, or become someone else before they can trust themselves. But life rarely works that way. The people who make the greatest impact are not the ones who eliminate uncertainty. They are the ones who learn to move while uncertainty is still present. This audiobook is built on a simple but powerful idea. Dangerous confidence is not something you feel, it is something you practice. It is not loud, it does not demand attention, it does not rely on arrogance, status, or the approval of strangers. It grows quietly every time you keep a promise to yourself, make a difficult decision instead of avoiding it, remain calm when circumstances become chaotic, or choose your values over your comfort. These moments seem ordinary, yet they slowly reshape the person you become. Think of confidence as a tree. Most people admire the branches because they are visible, the achievements, the influence, the opportunities, the recognition. But everything that keeps the tree standing exists underground. The roots are invisible. They grow in silence, strengthened by storms no one else sees. Your confidence works the same way. The world notices the results, but those results are sustained by habits, discipline, and character built long before anyone applauds. Throughout this audiobook, you will not be asked to imitate successful people or adopt someone else's personality. Instead, you will build your own internal framework for confidence, one that belongs to you alone. You will learn how to stop negotiating with self-doubt, make decisions without constantly seeking approval, speak with clarity instead of hesitation, transform fear into forward movement, protect your attention from distractions, and develop the emotional steadiness that allows you to lead yourself before trying to lead anyone else. Every chapter is designed to build upon the previous one. Rather than offering disconnected motivational advice, this journey follows a single path, strengthening the foundation of your identity. As that foundation becomes stronger, everything built upon it begins to change. Your standards rise, your actions become more intentional, your relationships become healthier, your choices become clearer. Opportunities that once seemed distant begin to feel attainable, not because the world changed, but because you did. There is another truth that few people talk about. Becoming impossible to ignore is not about becoming more visible, it is about becoming more valuable. Visibility can be created overnight. Value is earned over time. Visibility fades with trends. Value continues to grow because it is rooted in substance rather than appearance. The world is full of people competing to be noticed. Far fewer are committed to becoming someone worth remembering. This audiobook belongs to the second path. It is not about creating a more impressive image. It is about developing a stronger reality. When your actions consistently reflect your principles, your confidence no longer depends on circumstances. It becomes part of your identity. As you begin this journey, leave behind the belief that confidence belongs only to the naturally gifted, the charismatic, or the fearless. It belongs to anyone willing to build it deliberately, one decision at a time. And once that foundation is strong enough, something remarkable happens. You stop chasing attention. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You simply become the kind of person whose presence carries weight, whose words have purpose, and whose life reflects quiet conviction. That is what it truly means to become impossible to ignore. Chapter 1. Break the chains of approval. Imagine carrying an invisible compass that never points toward your own destination. Instead, it constantly shifts toward the expectations of everyone around you. Every compliment changes its direction. Every criticism pulls it somewhere else. Every opinion becomes another force deciding where you should go. Many people live this way without realizing it. They mistake approval for guidance and acceptance for success. Yet the more they depend on the approval of others, the less they understand who they truly are. Approval is not the enemy. As human beings, we naturally value belonging. Communities, friendships, and families have always depended on cooperation and trust. The problem begins when approval quietly changes from something appreciated into something required. Once that happens, every decision becomes a negotiation with someone else's expectations. Think about how often people censor themselves before speaking. They soften ideas they genuinely believe in. They postpone opportunities because someone might disagree. They choose careers that impress others instead of work that gives them purpose. They remain in unhealthy relationships because being accepted feels safer than standing alone. These decisions rarely happen in dramatic moments. They happen in small choices repeated day after day until they shape an entire life. This is what we will call the approval chains. Unlike physical chains, they cannot be seen. They are forged from tiny compromises. One link is created when you remain silent instead of expressing your opinion. Another appears when you abandon your priorities to satisfy someone else's expectations. Another forms when you allow criticism from strangers to outweigh your own judgment. Over time, these small moments connect until they limit how freely you think, speak, and act. The most dangerous part is that these chains often feel comfortable. Approval offers temporary relief. It avoids conflict. It creates the illusion of security. But comfort built on constant validation comes at a hidden cost. Every time you ignore your own values to gain acceptance, your confidence becomes weaker because you send yourself the same message. I trust other people's opinions more than my own. Real confidence grows in exactly the opposite direction. It begins when your decisions are guided by principles rather than applause. This does not mean becoming stubborn or ignoring wise advice. Strong people remain open to learning, but they no longer allow every outside opinion to become a command. They listen carefully, evaluate thoughtfully, and then choose according to their own values. Imagine two architects building identical houses. One constructs on shifting sand because it is easier. The other spends months laying a deep foundation into solid ground. At first, the difference is invisible. Both houses appear equally beautiful. Then, a powerful storm arrives. The house built on sand begins to crack because its strength depended on unstable ground. The second house remains standing because its foundation was built where storms could not easily reach. Approval works like shifting sand. Character works like solid stone. One of the greatest transformations in life happens when you stop asking, "Will people approve of this?" and begin asking, "Does this align with the person I want to become?" That single change redirects your attention from pleasing others to building yourself. It replaces short-term comfort with long-term integrity. This shift requires courage because there is always a price for independent thinking. Not everyone will understand your choices. Some people may question your direction simply because it differs from their own. Others may feel uncomfortable when you begin setting healthy boundaries after years of always saying yes. Their reaction is not proof that you are wrong. Often, it is evidence that your identity is changing. Consider the sculptor standing before a block of marble. The masterpiece is not created by adding endless layers. It emerges by removing everything that does not belong. In much the same way, confidence is not something you collect from the outside world. It is revealed by removing unnecessary dependence on approval, unnecessary fear of judgment, and unnecessary habits of comparison. As those layers fall away, your authentic character becomes visible. From this moment forward, begin paying attention to the choices you make each day. Notice the moments when you hesitate because you fear criticism. Notice the times you seek permission for decisions that are already yours to make. Notice how often your mood changes according to someone else's opinion. Awareness is where freedom begins. Every time you recognize one of these invisible chains, you weaken its hold. Breaking free from approval is not an act of rebellion against the world. It is an act of loyalty to yourself. The goal is not to reject people, but to stop surrendering your identity in exchange for temporary acceptance. When your values become stronger than your need to be liked, your decisions become clearer, your voice becomes steadier, and your confidence becomes something that no compliment can create and no criticism can destroy. This is the first step toward becoming impossible to ignore, not because you demand attention, but because you finally stop giving away the authority to define your own life. Chapter 2. Build confidence no one can destroy. Imagine building a house where every wall depends on the weather. On sunny days, it stands tall. During storms, it begins to collapse. No matter how beautiful it looks from the outside, it can never become a safe place because its strength is borrowed from conditions it cannot control. Many people build their confidence in exactly the same way. They feel capable when they receive praise, optimistic when things go well, and certain when life rewards them. But when failure arrives, criticism appears, or circumstances change, the confidence they depended on disappears just as quickly. This is not because they are weak, it is because they built their self-belief on unstable ground. Confidence that relies on applause will always fear silence. Confidence that depends on winning will always fear losing. Confidence that comes from comparison will always disappear whenever someone appears more talented, more successful, or more experienced. Anything built on changing conditions will continue changing with them. True confidence follows a different blueprint. Instead of asking, "How can I feel more confident?" ask a better question. What evidence have I given myself that I can be trusted? That question changes everything because lasting confidence is not created through positive thinking alone. It grows through repeated proof. Every promise you keep to yourself becomes another piece of evidence. Every difficult conversation you refuse to avoid strengthens that evidence. Every commitment you finish, even when motivation disappears, quietly reshapes the way you see yourself. Think of your mind as a careful historian rather than an enthusiastic cheerleader. It does not believe words simply because you repeat them. It studies patterns. If you constantly tell yourself that you are disciplined but repeatedly abandon your goals, your mind records inconsistency instead of confidence. If you claim to be courageous but continually retreat from discomfort, your actions speak louder than your intentions. Your identity is shaped less by what you declare and more by what you repeatedly demonstrate. This is why confidence cannot be borrowed from motivational speeches, inspiring quotes, or temporary excitement. Those experiences can ignite action, but they cannot replace the slow work of earning your own trust. Real confidence develops when your daily behavior consistently supports the person you say you want to become. Picture an old bridge crossing a deep canyon. Before anyone drives across it, engineers test it repeatedly. They apply pressure, examine weaknesses, and confirm that it can carry weight. Confidence develops through a similar process. Life quietly tests your character through ordinary moments. Will you keep your word when no one is watching? Will you continue learning after making a mistake? Will you remain patient when progress feels invisible? Every challenge is another opportunity to prove that your foundation is stronger than your circumstances. Many people wait until they feel confident before taking action. Ironically, action is what creates confidence in the first place. A musician becomes confident by practicing thousands of imperfect notes. An entrepreneur becomes confident by making difficult decisions despite uncertainty. A leader earns confidence by accepting responsibility long before feeling completely prepared. None of them begin with certainty. They begin with willingness. There is another misunderstanding worth letting go of. Confidence is not the absence of doubt. Doubt visits everyone. The difference is that confident people no longer allow doubt to become the final decision maker. They acknowledge uncertainty, gather information, make thoughtful choices, and continue moving forward. Their courage is not built on guaranteed outcomes. It is built on the belief that they can adapt, learn, and recover regardless of the result. One of the most powerful habits you can develop is keeping small promises to yourself. Wake up when you planned. Finish the task you committed to. Speak honestly, even when it feels uncomfortable. Follow through on responsibilities instead of negotiating with excuses. These actions may seem ordinary, but together they create something extraordinary. They establish an internal reputation. Long before other people trust you, you begin trusting yourself. Imagine carrying an invisible account within you. Every time you honor your word, you make a deposit. Every time you abandon a commitment without a meaningful reason, you make a withdrawal. Over weeks, months, and years, this account determines how much confidence you truly possess. It has nothing to do with your income, appearance, popularity, or achievements. It reflects only one question: can I rely on myself? This is why self-respect and confidence are inseparable. Self-respect is built through consistent action, and confidence grows naturally wherever self-respect exists. You no longer need constant encouragement because your own history becomes your strongest source of reassurance. You remember the obstacles you survived, the promises you honored, and the lessons you earned through persistence. As you move forward, stop searching for confidence in places where it cannot last. Do not chase it through comparison, recognition, or temporary success. Build it where no one else can take it, from disciplined habits, honest choices, meaningful effort, and unwavering integrity. When your confidence is rooted in your own character instead of other people's opinions, it becomes remarkably resilient. Success will no longer define you, failure will no longer break you, and criticism will no longer control you. You will have built something far more valuable than confidence that looks impressive. You will have built confidence that endures. Chapter 3. Command every room with quiet presence. The most influential person in a room is not always the one speaking the most. It is rarely the person trying the hardest to be noticed. More often, influence belongs to the individual who enters without forcing attention, yet naturally earns it. Their presence feels steady. Their words carry weight. Their movements appear intentional. They do not compete for the spotlight because they are not dependent on it. This is the difference between seeking attention and possessing presence. Many people confuse confidence with performance. They believe they must appear extraordinary at every moment. They rehearse impressive stories, exaggerate accomplishments, interrupt conversations to prove their knowledge, or constantly search for opportunities to be seen. These behaviors may attract attention for a moment, but they rarely earn lasting respect. Attention can be demanded. Presence must be developed. Presence begins long before you speak. It starts with the way you occupy your own mind. If your thoughts are consumed by questions such as, do they like me? Am I saying the right thing? Or, what are they thinking about me? Then your attention is directed outward instead of inward. Your energy becomes scattered because you are constantly reacting to imagined judgments instead of engaging with the moment itself. Now, imagine a different approach. You enter a room with a single purpose: to contribute rather than to impress. Instead of wondering how people see you, you focus on how you can add value. Instead of trying to prove your worth, you become curious, attentive, and fully present. This subtle shift changes everything. The conversation becomes more natural. Your confidence becomes calmer. People sense that you are comfortable with yourself and that comfort creates trust. Think of a mountain standing above a valley. It does not announce its strength. It does not compete with the trees surrounding it. It remains grounded, unmoved by passing storms or changing seasons. Its quiet stability is what makes it impressive. Human presence works in much the same way. The strongest individuals are often those who remain centered while everything around them becomes uncertain. This is why emotional steadiness is one of the foundations of quiet confidence. When someone immediately reacts to every criticism, interruption, or disagreement, they reveal that their emotions are easily controlled by outside circumstances. In contrast, a person who pauses, reflects, and responds thoughtfully demonstrates inner stability. They are not rushing to defend themselves because they know their value does not depend on winning every conversation. Silence also plays a surprising role in presence. Many people fear silence because they assume it makes them appear uncertain. In reality, unnecessary talking often weakens authority. People who constantly fill every pause leave little room for reflection. Those who are comfortable with silence communicate something different. They show that they do not feel pressured to speak simply to avoid discomfort. They speak because they have something meaningful to add. Imagine a skilled archer preparing to release an arrow. The power of the shot comes not from frantic movement but from stillness, focus, and precision. If the archer rushed every movement, the arrow would lose its direction. Your words work the same way. Thoughtful pauses give your ideas greater impact because they demonstrate intention rather than impulse. Body language also reflects the conversation happening inside your mind. When your confidence depends on approval, your posture often becomes defensive, your movements become hurried, your eyes constantly search for reassurance. But when your confidence is rooted in self-respect, your body naturally communicates calmness. You stand without tension. You maintain comfortable eye contact. Your gestures become deliberate rather than restless. These changes are not techniques designed to fool other people. They are natural expressions of internal confidence. One of the most powerful habits you can develop is learning to observe before reacting. Walk into a meeting without feeling the need to dominate it. Listen before offering opinions. Notice the emotions in the room before adding your voice. Presence grows stronger when awareness becomes more important than performance. Ironically, people who seek less attention often receive more because their contribution feels thoughtful rather than forced. There is another misconception worth abandoning. Presence is not reserved for extroverts. It has very little to do with personality. Some of the most memorable leaders throughout history were known for their calm composure rather than dramatic speeches. Their influence came from consistency, integrity, and the confidence to remain authentic even under pressure. They understood that people remember how you make them feel far longer than they remember how loudly you spoke. As you continue this journey, stop asking yourself how to become more impressive. Ask instead how to become more grounded. Build your attention before you seek attention. Strengthen your character before you strengthen your image. Develop the habit of entering every room with curiosity instead of insecurity, purpose instead of performance, and quiet confidence instead of loud approval seeking. When your presence is built on authenticity rather than appearance, people notice something difficult to describe, yet impossible to ignore. They trust your words because they sense your stability. They respect your decisions because they recognize your conviction. They remember you not because you demanded the room's attention, but because your quiet confidence transformed the atmosphere the moment you arrived. Chapter 4. Strengthen your mind under pressure. Anyone can appear confident when life is predictable. It is easy to feel certain when plans unfold as expected, people agree with your decisions, and nothing challenges your sense of control. The real measure of confidence appears when certainty disappears. Pressure has a unique way of revealing what is genuine and what is merely temporary. It strips away appearances and exposes the habits that truly guide your mind. Think about a ship crossing a calm sea. Almost anyone can steer when the water is still. But when powerful waves rise and visibility fades, the captain's preparation becomes far more important than the weather itself. In the same way, your life will never remain completely calm. Unexpected setbacks, criticism, disappointment, and uncertainty are not interruptions to the journey. They are part of it. The question is not whether pressure will arrive. The question is who you will become when it does. Many people assume pressure creates weakness. In reality, pressure often reveals weakness that already existed. If your confidence depends entirely on predictable circumstances, then uncertainty will naturally shake it. But if your confidence is rooted in discipline, clear thinking, and self-trust, difficult moments become opportunities to strengthen those qualities rather than lose them. One of the biggest mistakes people make under pressure is confusing urgency with importance. When emotions rise, the mind often demands immediate action. It wants quick answers, instant solutions, and fast reactions. Yet many of life's greatest mistakes are not caused by a lack of intelligence. They are caused by decisions made before emotions have settled. Picture a lake after a storm. When the water is disturbed, you cannot clearly see what lies beneath the surface. Only when the water becomes still does everything come back into focus. Your mind works in much the same way. A restless mind exaggerates problems, assumes the worst, and overlooks possibilities. A calm mind notices options that panic cannot see. This is why emotional discipline is such a powerful advantage. Emotional discipline does not mean ignoring your feelings or pretending they do not exist. It means refusing to let temporary emotions become permanent decisions. Fear, frustration, and disappointment all carry information, but they should never be handed complete control over your direction. An effective way to build this discipline is by creating space between what happens and how you respond. Most people collapse those two moments into one. Something goes wrong, and they react immediately. Someone criticizes them, and they defend themselves instantly. A setback occurs, and they assume failure is inevitable. But confident people understand that the small pause between an event and a response is where personal power lives. Imagine an experienced blacksmith shaping steel. The metal is exposed to intense heat, yet it is never struck randomly. Every movement is controlled, deliberate, and purposeful. Likewise, life's challenges shape your character only when your responses are intentional instead of impulsive. Pressure does not have to harden your heart or cloud your judgment. It can refine your thinking if you allow it. Another important shift is learning to separate facts from stories. Facts describe reality. Stories are the meanings we attach to that reality. Losing an opportunity is a fact. Telling yourself that you will never succeed is a story. Receiving criticism is a fact. Deciding that you are incapable is a story. When pressure increases, the mind often invents dramatic narratives that feel true but have little connection to reality. The strongest individuals train themselves to return to facts. They ask, what actually happened? What can I control? What is my next useful step? These questions interrupt emotional spirals and restore clarity. Instead of becoming trapped in imagined outcomes, they focus on practical action. There is also strength in accepting that not every challenge can be controlled. Some situations will remain uncertain despite your best efforts. Confidence is not the belief that everything will go according to plan. It is the belief that whatever happens, you can respond with wisdom, adaptability, and courage. That belief removes much of the fear surrounding uncertainty because your security no longer depends on perfect circumstances. Every difficult experience also carries an invitation. It asks whether you will become more reactive or more resilient. Resilience is not built during comfortable seasons. It grows through repeated moments of choosing patience over panic, discipline over impulse, and thoughtful action over emotional reaction. As you continue this journey, stop seeing pressure as an enemy trying to defeat you. Begin seeing it as a teacher revealing the strength of your foundation. Every challenge is an opportunity to strengthen your mind, deepen your self-trust, and sharpen your judgment. When you learn to remain steady while circumstances become unstable, something remarkable happens. You no longer wait for life to become easier before believing in yourself. Instead, you become the person who remains composed, clear, and confident, regardless of the storm unfolding around you. Chapter 5. Speak with absolute conviction. Long before people judge your ideas, they notice how you deliver them. Words carry meaning, but conviction gives those words life. Two people can express the exact same thought, yet one inspires confidence while the other is quickly forgotten. The difference is rarely intelligence. More often, it is the level of certainty behind the message. Many people believe powerful communication is about saying more. In reality, it is often about saying less with greater clarity. A river does not become stronger because it spreads in every direction. It gains power because it flows with purpose. Your words should work the same way. They should move with direction rather than drift through unnecessary explanation. One of the biggest obstacles to confident communication is the habit of speaking from a defensive position. Without realizing it, people soften every opinion with phrases such as, "I could be wrong," "This might sound silly," or "I'm not really an expert." Humility is valuable, but constantly weakening your own message teaches others to doubt you before you've even finished speaking. If you do not believe your thoughts deserve to be heard, why should anyone else? Speaking with conviction does not mean pretending to know everything. It means expressing what you genuinely know with honesty and clarity while remaining open to learning. There is a significant difference between confidence and arrogance. Arrogance refuses to listen because it assumes it already has every answer. Confidence listens carefully because it is secure enough to grow. Imagine a lighthouse standing on a rocky coastline. It does not chase ships across the ocean or compete with the waves. It simply shines steadily in one direction, providing guidance regardless of the weather. Strong communication follows the same principle. Instead of trying to impress everyone, it focuses on being clear, useful, and dependable. People naturally trust those whose message remains steady rather than constantly changing to match every audience. Another habit that weakens communication is the fear of silence. Many people rush to fill every pause because they worry silence makes them appear uncertain. Yet silence often communicates confidence more effectively than endless talking. A thoughtful pause gives ideas room to settle. It shows that you value precision more than speed. People who are comfortable with silence rarely appear nervous. They appear intentional. Listening is another overlooked part of speaking with authority. Many conversations are not conversations at all. They are two people waiting for their turn to talk. Genuine confidence removes that urgency. When you truly listen, you gather information that helps you respond thoughtfully instead of react automatically. You stop trying to win conversations and begin trying to understand them. Ironically, this makes your own words far more persuasive because they address what actually matters. Consider a master craftsperson shaping a piece of wood. Every cut is deliberate. Nothing is wasted. They do not carve faster simply to finish sooner. They understand that quality comes from precision, not speed. Your communication should reflect the same mindset. Choose words that clarify rather than complicate. Eliminate unnecessary explanations. Replace emotional reactions with thoughtful observations. Every sentence should serve a purpose. Your tone matters just as much as your vocabulary. A calm voice often carries more influence than a loud one. People instinctively trust someone who remains composed while discussing difficult subjects. Volume can attract attention, but composure earns respect. When you remain calm, you communicate that your confidence comes from inner stability rather than emotional intensity. It is also important to speak in alignment with your actions. Words gain strength when they are supported by consistent behavior. Promises mean little without follow-through. Advice carries little weight if your own life contradicts it. Authentic communication is built on integrity. The strongest message is not the one spoken most passionately, it is the one demonstrated consistently over time. Many people spend years searching for the perfect words while neglecting the character behind those words. Yet people remember authenticity far longer than flawless speeches. They remember honesty, clarity, and the feeling of speaking with someone who truly believes what they are saying. Conviction cannot be borrowed from a script. It grows naturally when your words reflect your values and your actions reinforce your message. As you move through life, challenge yourself to replace hesitation with intention. Speak because you have something meaningful to contribute, not because you feel pressured to fill silence. Express your ideas clearly without apologizing for having them. Accept correction without losing confidence. Ask questions without feeling inferior. Stand by your principles without becoming inflexible. When your communication is guided by clarity, integrity, and quiet conviction, your words begin to carry a different kind of influence. People may not remember every sentence you speak, but they will remember how certain, grounded, and authentic you made them feel. And in a world overflowing with noise, a voice rooted in genuine conviction becomes impossible to ignore. Chapter 6. Turn fear into forward momentum. Fear has convinced countless people to live smaller lives than they were capable of living. It whispers that the timing is wrong, that failure would be unbearable, that waiting is safer than moving. At first, those whispers sound reasonable. They disguise themselves as caution, preparation, or common sense. But over time, they create a pattern of hesitation. Dreams remain ideas. Opportunities pass unnoticed. Potential slowly becomes regret. The greatest misunderstanding about fear is believing it exists to stop you. In many cases, fear is simply announcing that you have arrived at the edge of your current identity. Every meaningful step forward feels unfamiliar because you are entering territory your mind has not explored before. The discomfort you experience is often not a warning that you are incapable. It is evidence that you are growing beyond what has become comfortable. Imagine standing at the entrance of a dense forest just before sunrise. From a distance, the path appears uncertain. The trees hide what lies ahead, and the silence makes every possibility seem larger than it really is. You could spend hours trying to imagine every obstacle, every wrong turn, and every challenge waiting inside. Yet no amount of thinking will reveal the path. The only way to discover where it leads is to take the first step. Life often works the same way. Clarity rarely arrives before action. More often, clarity is created by action. Many people believe confidence must come before courage. In reality, courage usually comes first. Confidence is simply the memory of courage repeated enough times. Every bold decision leaves behind evidence that you are capable of facing uncertainty. Those moments accumulate until what once felt impossible begins to feel natural. Consider how a sculptor shapes stone. The finished work is not hidden beneath a single strike of the hammer. It appears through hundreds of deliberate movements, each removing a small piece that no longer belongs. Growth follows a similar process. Every fearful action you take chips away at the belief that fear controls your future. Over time, what remains is not fearlessness, but freedom. This does not mean ignoring risk or acting recklessly. Dangerous confidence is never careless. It respects preparation, gathers information, and thinks strategically. The difference is that it refuses to let uncertainty become an excuse for inaction. It understands that there will never be a perfect moment when every doubt disappears. Waiting for complete certainty is often another way of avoiding meaningful progress. One helpful way to understand fear is to separate imagined consequences from real ones. The mind has an extraordinary ability to create disasters that never happen. Before an important conversation, it predicts rejection. Before starting a new project, it imagines embarrassment. Before taking a chance, it creates stories of failure. Most of these stories exist only in imagination, yet they influence real decisions. Instead of asking yourself, "What if everything goes wrong?" ask a different question. What if avoiding this opportunity costs me far more than trying? That question changes the direction of your thinking. It reminds you that every decision has a price. The risk of action is visible, but the cost of inaction often remains hidden until years have passed. Fear also becomes smaller when your focus shifts from outcomes to effort. You cannot control every result, but you can control your preparation, your attitude, and your willingness to keep learning. When success is measured only by winning, fear grows stronger. When success is measured by showing up with integrity and persistence, fear loses much of its influence. Picture a river meeting a massive boulder. At first glance, the obstacle seems impossible to overcome, yet the river does not argue with the stone or turn back in frustration. It continues moving. Sometimes it flows around the obstacle, sometimes it slowly reshapes it. What gives the river its strength is not force alone, but continuous movement. Progress, however small, is more powerful than standing still. Another important truth is that fear changes shape as you grow. The fears you overcome today will eventually be replaced by new challenges that match your next level of development. This is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that your life is expanding. Every stage of growth introduces unfamiliar responsibilities, greater opportunities, and new uncertainties. The goal is not to eliminate fear forever, but to become someone who no longer allows fear to make life's biggest decisions. As you continue this journey, stop viewing fear as a locked door. Begin seeing it as a doorway to a larger version of yourself. Let it remind you that meaningful progress rarely feels comfortable in the beginning. Every courageous conversation, every difficult choice, and every step into the unknown strengthens your ability to trust yourself. The people who become impossible to ignore are not those who never feel afraid. They are the ones who have learned to walk forward while fear is still present. They understand that courage is not the opposite of fear. It is the decision that something more important than fear deserves to lead the way. Chapter 7. Protect your energy like your future depends on it. Every person begins the day with the same 24 hours, yet not everyone finishes the day with the same level of progress. The difference is rarely explained by time alone. It is shaped by something even more valuable: energy. Your attention, emotional strength, and mental focus determine how much of your potential becomes reality. When these resources are spent carelessly, even the best opportunities lose their power. When they are protected wisely, ordinary days begin producing extraordinary results. Many people guard their money more carefully than they guard their attention. They think twice before making a financial purchase, yet they freely hand over hours of their lives to distractions, unnecessary arguments, endless comparison, and problems they were never meant to solve. They do not notice that every small distraction collects a hidden cost. Individually, each interruption seems harmless. Together, they quietly consume the energy needed to build something meaningful. Imagine owning a reservoir that supplies water to an entire city. Every leak may appear insignificant at first, but hundreds of small leaks eventually leave the reservoir, unable to meet its purpose. Your energy works the same way. It is rarely destroyed by one dramatic event. More often, it disappears through countless small drains that go unnoticed until exhaustion becomes your normal state. One of the largest energy drains is trying to control things beyond your influence. Many people replay old conversations, worry about opinions they cannot change, or imagine future problems that may never exist. Their minds become crowded with battles that produce no progress. Meanwhile, the tasks that could genuinely improve their lives receive only what little energy remains. Confident people develop a different habit. They regularly ask themselves a simple question: is this deserving of my attention? Not every problem deserves your emotional investment. Not every disagreement deserves a response. Not every opportunity deserves a yes. The ability to choose where your attention goes is one of the clearest signs of maturity and self-respect. Think of a skilled gardener caring for a healthy tree. The gardener does not water every weed growing nearby. Resources are directed toward what is meant to flourish. In the same way, your focus should nourish the parts of your life that align with your values, your goals, and the person you are becoming. Everything else deserves far less of your mental space. Another powerful way to protect your energy is by establishing boundaries. Many people misunderstand boundaries, believing they are walls designed to push others away. Healthy boundaries are not barriers against people, they are guidelines that protect your priorities. They allow generosity without self-neglect, kindness without constant sacrifice, and connection without losing your identity. Learning to say no is part of this process. Every yes carries an invisible no attached to it. When you say yes to activities that do not matter, you often say no to your health, your growth, your family, or your deepest ambitions. This is why successful people are often selective rather than endlessly available. Their discipline is reflected not only in what they choose to do, but also in what they deliberately refuse. Your environment also shapes your energy more than you may realize. The people surrounding you influence your thinking, your habits, and your expectations. Spend enough time with individuals who constantly complain, criticize, or avoid responsibility, and that mindset slowly becomes familiar. Spend time with people who value learning, accountability, and progress, and your own standards naturally begin to rise. This does not mean abandoning everyone who struggles. It means recognizing that the atmosphere you repeatedly enter eventually becomes part of the person you become. Rest is another form of protection, not a reward reserved for after success. A mind that never pauses gradually loses its sharpness. Just as an athlete cannot perform at full strength without recovery, your creativity, judgment, and resilience depend on moments of renewal. Rest is not the opposite of productivity. It is one of the conditions that makes sustained productivity possible. There is also great strength in simplifying your life. Many people mistake being busy for being effective. They fill every hour with activity, yet move very little closer to what truly matters. Progress does not come from doing everything. It comes from doing the right things consistently. Simplicity creates room for excellence because it removes unnecessary noise. As you continue building dangerous confidence, remember that your future will not be shaped only by what you accomplish. It will also be shaped by what you choose to protect. Protect your attention from constant distraction. Protect your peace from unnecessary conflict. Protect your values from temporary pressure. Protect your time from commitments that pull you away from your purpose. The people who become impossible to ignore understand a quiet truth. Every meaningful achievement is built with limited energy. They do not waste that energy chasing approval, carrying unnecessary burdens, or reacting to every distraction that crosses their path. Instead, they invest it where it creates lasting growth. When you begin treating your attention as your greatest asset rather than an unlimited resource, you stop living reactively and start building your life intentionally. And that single shift changes far more than your schedule. It changes your future. Chapter 8. Earn a reputation that opens doors. Long before opportunities arrive, your reputation often arrives first. It enters the room before your introduction, influences conversations you never hear, and shapes expectations before you have the chance to explain yourself. Whether you realize it or not, people are constantly forming conclusions based not on what you claim about yourself, but on the patterns you repeatedly demonstrate. Reputation is not built in a single impressive moment. It is the natural result of countless ordinary decisions made consistently over time. Many people spend enormous energy trying to create a powerful image. They focus on appearing successful, knowledgeable, or influential. But image is fragile because it depends on perception. Reputation is stronger because it depends on reality. An image can be created in a day. A reputation is earned one action at a time. Imagine two bridges crossing the same river. One is painted beautifully but built with weak materials. The other looks simple yet has been carefully engineered to carry heavy weight year after year. At first glance, the painted bridge attracts more attention. But when people need to cross safely, appearances no longer matter. They choose the bridge they trust. In life, your reputation becomes that bridge. When responsibility, opportunity, or leadership is involved, people look for reliability, not decoration. Trust is built through consistency. Every promise you keep quietly strengthens it. Every responsibility you fulfill without excuses adds another layer. Every time your actions match your words, you reinforce the belief that others can depend on you. Confidence becomes far more convincing when it is supported by a history of integrity rather than occasional moments of brilliance. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that reputation is created only through major achievements. In reality, it grows from small behaviors that are repeated long enough to become part of your identity. Showing up prepared, finishing what you start, admitting mistakes instead of hiding them, treating people with respect even when no reward is attached. These habits rarely attract headlines, yet they steadily build something far more valuable than temporary recognition. Think about an old clockmaker assembling a masterpiece. No single gear makes the clock remarkable. Each small component must be crafted with care because the entire mechanism depends upon every piece working together. Character works the same way. Reputation is not built through one extraordinary quality. It is created through dozens of small habits operating together day after day. Another important truth is that reputation grows strongest when no one is watching. It is easy to work hard when praise is guaranteed. It is much harder to maintain excellence when recognition is absent. Yet the habits developed in private eventually become visible in public. Discipline practiced behind closed doors often produces confidence that cannot be imitated because it is rooted in genuine experience rather than performance. There will also be moments when your reputation is tested. People may misunderstand your intentions, question your decisions, or judge you before knowing the full story. During these moments, resist the urge to defend yourself through endless explanations. A strong reputation has patience. It understands that one consistent life speaks louder than repeated attempts to control every opinion. This does not mean ignoring criticism. Constructive feedback remains valuable because it reveals opportunities to grow. The difference is learning whose opinions deserve your attention. Advice from people who demonstrate wisdom, integrity, and experience can sharpen your character. Random criticism from those who know little about your journey should not become the foundation of your self-image. Generosity also shapes reputation in ways many people overlook. The strongest individuals are not remembered only for what they achieved. They are remembered for how they made others feel, how they shared knowledge, how they encouraged growth, and how they treated people when there was nothing to gain. Respect built through kindness often lasts longer than admiration built through success alone. Imagine planting an orchard instead of a single tree. During the early years, the work seems slow. You prepare the soil, water the roots, and care for something that offers little immediate reward. But as time passes, every tree begins producing fruit. Eventually, the orchard provides abundance far beyond the effort of planting one seed. Reputation follows the same principle. Every honest action, every fulfilled commitment, and every act of integrity becomes another seed. Individually, they appear small, but together they create a legacy that continues opening doors long into the future. As you continue this journey, remember that confidence is not measured by how loudly you announce your value. It is reflected in how consistently you live your values. Let your actions become stronger than your promises. Let your discipline become louder than your ambition. Let your integrity become more memorable than your achievements. The people who become impossible to ignore rarely spend their lives trying to convince others they are trustworthy. Instead, they quietly build a reputation so dependable that opportunities begin searching for them. When your character becomes your introduction, your consistency becomes your signature, and your integrity becomes your greatest strength, you no longer need to chase credibility. You carry it with you wherever you go. Chapter 9. Outsmart the fear of being misunderstood. One of the quietest forces holding people back is not failure, rejection, or lack of opportunity. It is the fear of being misunderstood. Many people spend years editing their personality, hiding their ambitions, or staying silent simply to avoid making others uncomfortable. They would rather fit into familiar expectations than risk standing apart. Yet the moment you begin building a life that reflects your own values instead of everyone else's expectations, misunderstanding becomes almost inevitable. Every meaningful change challenges the assumptions people have about you. If you become more disciplined, someone may call you obsessed. If you become more confident, someone may mistake it for arrogance. If you begin protecting your time, others may believe you have become distant. Their interpretation is often based on the version of you they have grown accustomed to, not the person you are becoming. Imagine reading only one chapter of a novel and deciding you already know how the entire story ends. That is how people often judge one another. They see a single decision, one conversation, or one moment in time and assume they understand the complete picture. But every person carries experiences, struggles, and intentions that remain invisible to everyone else. Expecting complete understanding from every individual is an impossible standard. This realization is surprisingly freeing. Once you accept that not everyone will fully understand your choices, you stop wasting energy trying to explain every step of your journey. You begin allowing your actions to speak over time instead of demanding immediate agreement. Many people confuse being understood with being validated. They believe that if others disagree with them, they must be making the wrong decision. But approval and understanding are not reliable measures of truth. Some of the most meaningful decisions you will ever make may initially disappoint people, challenge traditions, or disrupt expectations. That discomfort does not automatically mean you are heading in the wrong direction. Sometimes it means you are finally moving toward the life that truly belongs to you. Think of an eagle flying above a valley. Birds that remain close to the ground cannot always understand why it climbs higher instead of staying with the flock. From their perspective, the eagle appears to be leaving safety behind. From the eagle's perspective, rising higher creates a clearer view of the landscape. Growth often changes your perspective before it changes anyone else's. There is another reason misunderstanding feels painful. Human beings naturally want to belong. We value connection, friendship, and acceptance. These desires are healthy. Problems begin only when belonging becomes more important than authenticity. If you constantly sacrifice your values to avoid disagreement, you may gain temporary approval but gradually lose respect for yourself. Real confidence requires choosing authenticity even when it costs comfort. This does not mean becoming argumentative or intentionally different for the sake of attention. There is no wisdom in rejecting advice simply to appear independent. Confidence remains teachable. It listens carefully, considers different viewpoints, and willingly admits mistakes. The difference is that it no longer abandons deeply held principles merely to avoid criticism. One helpful question to ask yourself is, am I seeking understanding or am I seeking permission? These are not the same. Seeking understanding creates meaningful conversations. Seeking permission places your life in someone else's hands. The more your happiness depends on everyone agreeing with you, the less freedom you actually possess. History repeatedly reminds us that meaningful ideas are often questioned before they are accepted. New ways of thinking, creating, and leading rarely receive immediate applause. They first encounter doubt because people naturally compare unfamiliar ideas to familiar patterns. While this audiobook is not about changing the world, the same principle applies to personal growth. Your future self will often seem unfamiliar to those who only know your past. Patience becomes an important companion during this process. You do not have to convince everyone that your choices are right. Time has a remarkable way of revealing the value of consistent action. A person who quietly lives according to strong principles often earns respect that endless explanations could never achieve. As you continue your journey, remember that confidence is not proven by winning every argument or receiving universal approval. It is demonstrated by remaining true to your values while continuing to treat others with respect. Let your character become your explanation. Let your consistency answer doubts that words cannot. Let your results speak where opinions grow loud. The people who become impossible to ignore understand that misunderstanding is not a barrier to growth. It is often a sign that growth is taking place. They refuse to let temporary opinions determine permanent decisions. Instead, they keep moving with quiet conviction, trusting that a life built on integrity will always outlast the judgments of the moment. When you stop fearing the possibility of being misunderstood, you gain something far more valuable than acceptance. You gain the freedom to become exactly who you were meant to be. Chapter 10. Master the Discipline of Calm. In a world that rewards speed, noise, and constant reaction, calm has become a rare form of strength. Most people believe confidence is revealed through bold gestures, quick responses, or powerful speeches. Yet the individuals who leave the deepest impression often possess a very different quality. They remain steady when emotions run high. They think clearly when others panic. They respond with intention instead of reacting on impulse. Their greatest advantage is not that they avoid pressure, it is that pressure does not control them. Calm is often misunderstood as passivity. It is mistaken for hesitation, lack of ambition, or emotional distance. In reality, true calm is active, not passive. It is the ability to remain fully engaged without becoming overwhelmed by the moment. It allows you to make better decisions because your mind is serving your purpose instead of your emotions. Imagine a skilled sailor navigating through rough seas. The ocean cannot be commanded and the wind cannot be negotiated with. The sailor succeeds by adjusting the sails rather than arguing with the storm. Life presents the same challenge. You cannot control every setback, every opinion, or every unexpected event. What you can control is the way you respond. That response determines whether difficulties become obstacles or opportunities. One reason people lose their composure is that they mistake every challenge for a personal threat. A disagreement feels like an attack on their identity. A mistake feels like proof of failure. A delay feels like a permanent setback. When every event carries emotional weight, the mind quickly becomes exhausted. Calm begins when you separate who you are from what is happening around you. A difficult situation may test your abilities, but it does not define your worth. This shift in thinking creates emotional space. Instead of reacting automatically, you begin observing your thoughts before acting on them. You recognize frustration without becoming ruled by it. You notice disappointment without allowing it to dictate your next decision. This small pause may seem insignificant, but it is one of the most valuable habits you can develop. It transforms reaction into choice. Consider a master chess player studying the board. While others rush to make the first move they see, the experienced player remains patient. Every piece is examined, every possibility considered. Victory is rarely decided by the fastest decision. It is earned through the wisest one. Your daily life works the same way. Calm gives your judgment enough room to operate. It prevents temporary emotions from creating permanent consequences. There will always be people who attempt to pull you into unnecessary conflict. Some thrive on arguments. Others seek attention by provoking emotional reactions. If you respond to every criticism, every insult, or every disagreement, you surrender control of your peace to whoever chooses to disturb it. Quiet confidence understands that not every invitation deserves acceptance. Sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. This does not mean avoiding difficult conversations. Calm is not silence in the face of important issues. It is choosing the right moment, the right words, and the right mindset before speaking. A composed conversation often accomplishes more than an emotional confrontation. People may forget raised voices, but they remember those who remained thoughtful when everyone else lost control. Your daily habits also influence your ability to stay calm. A cluttered schedule, constant distractions, poor rest, and endless multitasking gradually weaken mental clarity. In contrast, simple routines, moments of reflection, and intentional pauses strengthen emotional resilience. Calm is not created only during life's biggest challenges. It is built through the ordinary choices you make every day. Another important lesson is accepting that uncertainty is part of every meaningful journey. Many people become anxious because they believe they must predict every outcome before taking action. But confidence is not the ability to see the entire path. It is the willingness to take the next step, even when the future remains unclear. Calm allows you to move forward without demanding absolute certainty. Think of a tall oak tree standing through changing seasons. Powerful winds bend its branches, heavy rain soaks its roots, and harsh winters strip away its leaves. Yet year after year it remains standing because its strength comes from deep roots rather than favorable weather. Your calm should be built the same way. Let it grow from your principles, your discipline, and your trust in your ability to adapt, not from the hope that life will always be easy. As you continue becoming impossible to ignore, remember that people are naturally drawn to those who create stability instead of spreading chaos. They trust leaders who remain composed when challenges arise. They respect individuals who solve problems instead of amplifying them. They remember those whose presence brings clarity rather than confusion. Mastering the discipline of calm does not mean you will never feel fear, frustration, or disappointment. It means those emotions no longer become the authors of your decisions. When your mind remains steady while circumstances keep changing, you develop a quiet confidence that cannot be shaken by temporary storms. And that kind of confidence is far more powerful than any loud display of strength because it is built on self-mastery rather than emotion. Chapter 11. Expand your identity before you expand your results. Every lasting transformation begins long before it becomes visible. People often notice the promotion, the achievement, the healthier lifestyle, or the breakthrough moment, but they rarely see the quiet shift that made those outcomes possible. Before your life changes on the outside, something must first change within the way you see yourself. Results are often the final chapter of a story that began with a new identity. Many people set ambitious goals while holding on to an outdated self-image. They want to become disciplined, but still think of themselves as someone who always gives up. They hope to become confident while secretly believing they are naturally insecure. They dream of leading others while continuing to identify as someone who should stay in the background. This creates an invisible conflict. Their actions move toward one future while their identity keeps pulling them back toward the past. Imagine trying to grow a magnificent oak tree in a flower pot. No matter how healthy the seed is, the container eventually becomes too small for its roots. Growth slows, not because the tree lacks potential, but because the environment no longer supports its expansion. Your identity works like that container. If your view of yourself remains limited, your actions will eventually collide with those limits. One of the most powerful questions you can ask is not, "What do I want to achieve?" but "Who must I become to achieve it?" That question shifts your attention away from temporary outcomes and toward permanent transformation. Achievements can be gained and lost, but the person you become shapes every achievement that follows. Think of a skilled architect before the first brick is laid. The building exists first as a clear design. Every wall, doorway, and foundation is imagined before construction begins. Without that vision, the project has no direction. In the same way, your future identity becomes the blueprint for your daily decisions. The clearer that blueprint becomes, the easier it is to recognize which habits belong in your life and which ones no longer fit. This does not mean pretending to be someone you are not. It means growing into someone you are fully capable of becoming. There is an important difference. Authentic growth is not about wearing a mask. It is about removing the limitations that have convinced you to live beneath your potential. Many limiting beliefs are inherited rather than chosen. They come from old failures, careless comments, difficult experiences, or repeated comparisons. Over time, these moments create labels. I'm not a leader. I'm not creative. I'm not confident. The mind repeats these labels until they begin to feel like facts. But labels are not identities. They are often outdated conclusions based on temporary experiences. Imagine carrying an old map while traveling through a city that has completely changed. New roads have been built, old buildings have disappeared, and entire neighborhoods have transformed. If you continue trusting the outdated map, you will become lost despite standing in the right place. Many people live according to outdated mental maps of themselves. They continue making decisions based on who they were years ago instead of who they are becoming today. To expand your identity, begin collecting new evidence. Every disciplined choice challenges the belief that you lack discipline. Every courageous conversation weakens the idea that you are afraid to speak. Every promise you keep replaces an old story with a stronger one. Identity changes gradually, not through one dramatic event, but through repeated actions that prove a different version of yourself is emerging. Another essential part of identity is raising your personal standards. Standards are different from goals. Goals describe what you hope to accomplish. Standards describe the behavior you refuse to compromise. A goal might be to become healthier. A standard is deciding that caring for your body is no longer optional. Goals inspire you, but standards guide you every day, especially when motivation fades. Surrounding yourself with growth-minded people also strengthens this transformation. Human beings naturally adapt to the expectations of their environment. When you spend time with people who challenge themselves, honor their commitments, and continually learn, higher standards begin to feel normal rather than exceptional. Their example quietly expands your own vision of what is possible. As your identity grows, so does your willingness to accept responsibility. Instead of asking why life is unfair, you begin asking what you can improve. Instead of waiting for perfect circumstances, you build progress with the opportunities already in front of you. This mindset creates momentum because your attention stays focused on action rather than excuses. Remember that confidence is not simply believing you can succeed. It is believing you can continue becoming someone stronger through every experience, whether it brings victory or setback. The person who embraces growth never sees failure as a final verdict. They see it as information that shapes the next version of themselves. Becoming impossible to ignore is not about collecting impressive achievements to impress the world. It is about expanding your identity until your actions naturally reflect the person you were always capable of becoming. When your self-image grows stronger than your old limitations, your decisions become bolder, your standards become higher, and your future begins to unfold in ways that once seemed impossible. Real transformation always begins within, and once your identity changes, your results have little choice but to follow. Chapter 12. Create opportunities instead of waiting for them. Many people spend their lives hoping the right opportunity will eventually appear. They wait for the perfect job, the perfect connection, the perfect idea, or the perfect moment to begin. They believe that successful people are simply luckier, that somehow the world keeps placing possibilities in front of them while everyone else is left waiting. But if you look closely, you will notice a different pattern. The people who seem surrounded by opportunities are usually the ones who have learned how to create them. Opportunity is rarely a surprise visitor. More often, it is the result of preparation meeting initiative. It grows from habits, relationships, curiosity, and consistent effort long before anyone recognizes the outcome. What appears to be sudden success is often the visible reward for invisible work. Imagine a sailor who complains that the wind never favors their journey. Another sailor faces the same wind but adjusts the sails, changes direction when necessary, and keeps moving. Neither controls the weather, yet one reaches the destination while the other remains anchored. Life offers similar conditions to everyone. You cannot command circumstances, but you can decide how skillfully you respond to them. One of the greatest barriers to opportunity is the belief that someone else must grant permission before progress can begin. People wait to be invited, selected, recommended, or discovered. While there are moments when outside support matters, dangerous confidence begins with a different mindset. It asks, "What can I build with what I already have?" That question shifts your attention from limitation to possibility. Every skill you develop becomes a tool for creating future opportunities. Every meaningful relationship you nurture becomes a bridge to conversations that may not exist today. Every problem you solve increases your ability to recognize solutions where others see obstacles. Opportunity often hides inside preparation because prepared people notice possibilities that unprepared people overlook. Think about a skilled gardener preparing the soil before planting seeds. From the outside, it may seem as though very little is happening. The ground is being cleared, nourished, and patiently cultivated. Weeks later, life begins to appear where others previously saw only empty land. Success works much the same way. The invisible work of learning, practicing, and improving creates conditions where future opportunities can take root. Curiosity is another powerful creator of opportunity. Curious people ask better questions, explore unfamiliar ideas, and remain willing to learn from unexpected sources. Instead of assuming they already know enough, they constantly expand their understanding. This habit keeps their minds flexible and their perspective fresh. The more they learn, the more connections they make, and those connections often lead to possibilities that cannot be predicted. Action is equally important. Ideas alone never change a life. Countless brilliant plans remain trapped inside notebooks because they were never tested in the real world. Progress belongs to those willing to take imperfect action, gather feedback, make adjustments, and continue moving forward. Every attempt provides information. Every experience strengthens judgment. Every small step increases the chances of discovering a path that was invisible from the starting point. There will always be uncertainty. You may not know whether a conversation will lead to a partnership, whether a new skill will open unexpected doors, or whether today's effort will produce results next month or next year. That uncertainty is not a reason to stop. It is simply part of the creative process. Farmers do not plant seeds because they possess absolute guarantees. They plant because they understand that growth requires consistent effort before visible results appear. It is also important to become someone others want to work with. Reliability, honesty, curiosity, and generosity create opportunities that talent alone cannot. People remember those who solve problems, keep their word, and contribute without constantly seeking recognition. Your reputation quietly multiplies the value of every skill you possess. Sometimes the greatest opportunity is hidden inside disappointment. A closed door forces you to search for another path. A failed project teaches lessons that later become invaluable. A difficult season develops resilience that cannot be learned through comfort alone. Looking back, many people realize that what seemed like a setback was actually a redirection towards something better suited to their growth. As you continue this journey, stop asking when opportunity will arrive. Begin asking what kind of person naturally attracts opportunity. Become someone who learns continuously, acts consistently, adapts quickly, and contributes generously. Develop skills before they are required. Build relationships before you need assistance. Solve problems before someone asks you to. These choices create momentum, and momentum has a remarkable way of uncovering possibilities that once seemed out of reach. The people who become impossible to ignore do not spend their lives waiting for the future to improve. They shape it through intentional action. They understand that while luck may influence a single moment, preparation influences an entire lifetime. When you commit yourself to continuous growth and purposeful action, opportunities stop feeling like rare accidents. They become the natural consequence of the person you have chosen to become. Chapter 13. Become the standard others rise toward. There is a profound difference between attracting attention and earning influence. Attention can be gained through dramatic words, bold claims, or temporary success. Influence, however, is built through consistency. It grows quietly until one day people begin looking to you, not because you demanded their respect, but because your actions have repeatedly proven that your character can be trusted. Most people believe leadership begins with a title, a position, or authority over others. In reality, leadership begins much earlier. It starts the moment your daily choices become an example that others cannot ignore. Whether you realize it or not, every action communicates a message. Your discipline teaches. Your attitude teaches. The way you respond to setbacks teaches. Even your silence teaches. People learn far more from what you repeatedly do than from what you occasionally say. Imagine a compass placed on a table surrounded by scattered pieces of metal. While everything else points in different directions, the compass remains faithful to true north. It does not change because of confusion around it. Its consistency is precisely what makes it valuable. Your principles should function the same way. In a world filled with changing opinions, temporary trends, and constant distractions, people naturally trust those whose values remain steady. This is why becoming the standard begins with holding yourself accountable before expecting anything from others. It is easy to point out someone else's lack of discipline while ignoring your own excuses. It is easy to expect honesty while making small compromises with the truth. Genuine influence begins when you demand from yourself the same qualities you admire in others. There is a quiet power in personal consistency. Imagine a lighthouse standing along a rugged coastline. It does not chase ships or convince them to follow its guidance. It simply shines every night with unwavering reliability. Sailors trust it because they know exactly what they will find when darkness arrives. In much the same way, people place confidence in those whose behavior remains dependable, regardless of changing circumstances. One of the greatest mistakes people make is trying to inspire others through advice before earning credibility through action. Advice is easy to give. Living according to your principles every day is far more difficult. Yet actions possess a persuasive force that words alone can never match. When people see integrity expressed through consistent behavior, they begin paying attention without being asked. Becoming the standard also requires humility. Confidence without humility eventually becomes pride, and pride often closes the door to growth. The strongest individuals never assume they have finished learning. They welcome new ideas, accept constructive feedback, and remain willing to improve. Their confidence comes from knowing they can grow, not from pretending they already know everything. Another essential quality is responsibility. People who become examples stop blaming circumstances for every setback. They understand that while they cannot control every event, they always control their response. This mindset creates trust because others know they will not disappear when challenges arise. Reliability is often more inspiring than talent because it demonstrates commitment rather than convenience. Think of a master craftsperson creating a fine instrument. Every measurement is checked carefully. Every detail matters, even those hidden from public view. The final masterpiece is impressive because excellence was practiced in private long before anyone admired the result. Your character is shaped in exactly the same way. The habits no one sees eventually become the qualities everyone recognizes. It is also important to remember that becoming the standard does not require perfection. Perfection creates distance because it feels unattainable. Authenticity creates connection because it reminds people that growth is possible. Admit mistakes when they happen, learn from them openly, Correct your course without making excuses. People respect those who demonstrate integrity far more than those who pretend never to struggle. As your confidence grows, resist the temptation to measure your success by comparison. The goal is not to outperform everyone around you. The goal is to become a better version of yourself than you were yesterday. When improvement becomes your daily habit, comparison gradually loses its influence. Your competition shifts from other people to your own potential. There is another remarkable effect of living this way. You begin giving others permission to raise their own standards. Your discipline encourages someone else to become more disciplined. Your courage inspires another person to face a difficult decision. Your calm under pressure reminds others that emotional strength is possible. You may never know how many lives your example quietly influences, but influence often spreads farther than recognition. As you prepare for the final stage of this journey, remember that dangerous confidence reaches its highest expression, not when it seeks admiration, but when it quietly elevates everyone around it. Becoming impossible to ignore is no longer about proving your worth. It is about living with such consistency, integrity, courage, and purpose that your life becomes a reference point for excellence. When your principles remain steady, your actions match your words, and your character stays strong regardless of circumstance, people no longer remember you simply for what you accomplished. They remember the standard you chose to live by and the higher standard you inspired them to pursue themselves. Chapter 14. Become impossible to ignore. Every chapter of this journey has been leading to one realization. Becoming impossible to ignore has very little to do with attracting attention. It has everything to do with becoming a person whose character is too strong to be overlooked. The world remembers those who live with clarity, consistency, and conviction, not because they demand recognition, but because they create value wherever they go. Many people spend their lives searching for a single secret that will transform everything overnight. They look for the perfect strategy, the perfect habit, or the perfect opportunity. But lasting confidence is never built on one dramatic breakthrough. It is built through countless ordinary choices made with extraordinary consistency. The way you think, the promises you keep, the standards you protect, and the courage you display during difficult moments quietly shape the person you become. Imagine a blacksmith forging a sword. The strength of the blade is not created by one strike of the hammer. It comes from a repeated cycle of heat, pressure, refinement, and patience. Every round removes weakness and strengthens the structure hidden within the steel. Human character is forged in much the same way. Every challenge you face, every fear you confront, every responsibility you accept, and every value you refuse to compromise adds another layer of strength to your identity. Throughout this audiobook, you have been building more than confidence. You have been constructing an internal foundation. You learned to break free from the need for constant approval. You discovered that real confidence grows by keeping promises to yourself rather than collecting praise from others. You developed the ability to enter every room with quiet presence instead of loud performance. You strengthened your mind under pressure, learned to speak with clarity and conviction, and transformed fear into forward momentum instead of allowing it to become a stopping point. You also learned that your energy is one of your greatest resources and deserves careful protection. You discovered that your reputation is built through consistent actions rather than impressive words. You accepted that being misunderstood is sometimes the price of living authentically. You practiced emotional calm when others reacted impulsively, expanded your identity before expecting larger results, created opportunities through initiative instead of waiting for permission, and raised your own standards until they became an example for others. These ideas are not separate lessons. They are connected pieces of the same philosophy. Together, they create a way of living where confidence is no longer something you occasionally feel. It becomes something you repeatedly demonstrate. There is an important distinction between confidence and certainty. Certainty believes every answer is already known. Confidence believes that whatever happens, you will continue learning, adapting, and moving forward. This mindset removes the pressure to be perfect. Instead of fearing mistakes, you begin treating them as information. Instead of avoiding discomfort, you recognize it as evidence that your life is expanding. Think of a river carving its way through a canyon. It does not force the mountain to move in a single day. It reshapes the landscape through steady movement over time. Dangerous confidence works in the same way. It is not loud enough to shake the world overnight, but it is consistent enough to transform your life over the years. Every disciplined decision deepens the path. Every courageous action strengthens your direction. Every setback overcome reminds you that persistence is often more powerful than speed. From this point forward, stop measuring your progress by applause. Measure it by alignment. Are your choices reflecting your values? Are your habits supporting your future? Are your actions matching the person you are determined to become? These questions matter far more than temporary recognition because they place your attention where lasting growth truly begins. Remember that influence is never something you chase. It is something you earn. Respect is never something you demand. It is something your behavior invites. Confidence is never something another person can hand to you. It is something you build every time you choose integrity over convenience, discipline over excuses, courage over comfort, and purpose over popularity. One day, people may describe you as confident, dependable, or inspiring. They may admire your composure during difficult moments or your ability to lead without seeking attention. But those qualities will not appear by accident. They will exist because of the invisible decisions you made long before anyone noticed. This is the true meaning of becoming impossible to ignore. It is not about becoming the loudest voice in the room. It is about becoming the strongest presence in your own life. It is about creating a character so deeply rooted in purpose that circumstances cannot easily shake it, criticism cannot easily weaken it, and success cannot easily corrupt it. When you live this way, you no longer wake up asking whether the world will recognize your value. You wake up focused on creating value. And in the end, that is the quiet power that separates people who simply attract attention from those whose lives leave a lasting impression. Your confidence is no longer an image you project. It has become the foundation upon which you build everything that comes next. Conclusion. As you reach the end of this audiobook, remember that this is not the finish line. It is a starting point. The pages may have ended, but the real work begins the moment you return to your everyday life. Confidence is never proven by what you understand. It is revealed by what you consistently practice. Every ordinary day now becomes an opportunity to strengthen the person you are becoming. Throughout this journey, you have explored a different definition of confidence, not the kind that depends on applause, appearance, or perfect circumstances, but the kind that grows from within. You have discovered that lasting confidence is built through self-respect, disciplined action, emotional stability, honest communication, purposeful choices, and the willingness to keep moving even when certainty is impossible. These are not isolated ideas. Together, they form a way of living. There will still be moments when doubt returns. There will be days when progress feels slow, criticism feels personal, or fear tries to convince you to retreat into familiar habits. Do not mistake those moments for failure. They are reminders that growth is an ongoing process, not a permanent destination. Every challenge gives you another opportunity to choose the person you want to become instead of the person you used to be. As life moves forward, continue asking yourself better questions. Instead of wondering whether people will approve of your decisions, ask whether your decisions reflect your principles. Instead of asking whether success is guaranteed, ask whether your actions are worthy of the future you hope to create. Instead of asking whether you feel confident, ask whether you are behaving like someone who trusts their own character. Never underestimate the power of small decisions. A single promise kept, a difficult conversation handled with integrity, a distraction refused, a courageous step taken despite uncertainty. Individually, these actions may seem insignificant, but together they shape your identity. Your future is rarely transformed by one extraordinary event. It is transformed by ordinary choices repeated with extraordinary consistency. Remember that the strongest people are not those who never struggle. They are the ones who refuse to let struggle define them. They adapt without losing their values. They remain humble while continuing to grow. They protect their peace without losing their compassion. They lead themselves before trying to lead anyone else. From this day forward, stop measuring your worth by how much attention you receive. Measure it by the quality of your character, the consistency of your actions, and the honesty with which you live your life. Attention is temporary. Character endures. Recognition comes and goes. Integrity remains. One day, someone may ask what changed your life. It will not be a single sentence from this audiobook or one dramatic breakthrough. It will be the quiet decision you made to stop waiting for confidence and start building it. It will be the moment you chose discipline over excuses, purpose over popularity, and authenticity over approval. That is the quiet strength of dangerous confidence. It does not seek to be admired. It seeks to become dependable. It does not compete to stand above others. It strives to become a stronger version of yesterday's self. And when that becomes your daily commitment, something remarkable happens. You stop chasing significance because your actions begin creating it naturally. Walk forward with courage. Protect your principles. Honor your commitments. Continue learning. Continue growing. Continue becoming. The world does not need another person trying to be noticed. It needs more people whose integrity is unquestionable, whose confidence is grounded in character, and whose presence inspires others to believe that meaningful change is possible. Become that person, one decision at a time.